You don't need to spend recklessly and buy a Birkin every single month in order to stay broke. Sometimes it is the small habits that you think are totally okay and normal that are silently draining your bank account. So let's talk about 10 money habits that are keeping you broke. What are my credentials? Well, I'm about to finish my master's degree in business and economics. I've been obsessed with personal finance since I was 17, and the day I turned 18, I wanted to open a retirement account. I wasn't even working at the time. So beside me being a little bit of a personal finance nerd, which I totally stand behind, I believe that every single woman should be in control of her finances, should not be scared about being financially literate and learning about finance, because trust me, it is not that hard. Sometimes the finance bros just like to throw fancy words out there, but personal finance is truly for anyone, so let's stop yapping and let's get started. I'm aware that this might probably upset a lot of people, but the first habit is that you tell yourself that you are bad with money. We all know that self-identity shapes our reality, and that is also true when it comes to the way that we think about money. If you have a scarcity mindset around money and you think that only the people who are born rich are currently rich, this limiting belief can prevent you from lucrative opportunities. For instance, you might never start a business, you might never invest, and you might never negotiate your salary. Why? Because you believe that just because you don't come from money, you don't deserve to have more money. When someone is constantly telling themselves that they are not good with money, there are 4 things that tend to happen. First of all, they avoid looking at their finances because it feels overwhelming. They don't know what is coming in and what is going out, and this is dangerous. Because of that, they also miss opportunities to save, for instance. They never open a savings account, they never budget, and that just makes everything worse. They also tend to make quick, short-term decisions in order to relieve the stress, and this has been shown in multiple studies, including a very interesting one done by a Harvard economist and a Princeton psychologist, where they show that when people experience financial scarcity, their mind just focuses on how to solve this immediate problem, and therefore they lose the mental capacity to think long-term. This in turn hurts them because they don't think about investing, because all of the energy is gone towards this immediate problem. And fourth, this then turns into a full circle moment where all of these decisions, like maybe overdrafting because they don't know how much they have in their account, and not saving because they don't have the mental capacity to think long term, just confirms their original belief that they are not good with money. I don't want this to happen to you, so if you have limiting beliefs around money, I definitely encourage you to work on them. This can be done through journaling about where these limiting beliefs come from just telling yourself that you are good with money, from watching videos like this one or reading books about finance, so you actually get more educated on the topic and you can make better decisions for yourself. I don't think that you are bad with money, but I know that you might be operating under a mindset proven by science to reduce your decision-making ability. And the first step to breaking this cycle is shifting your identity. And telling yourself that you are bad with money is not harmless and it's not cute, it's not a personality trait, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is scientifically proven. And if you believe that you won't grow financially, you won't even try. That belief alone can keep you broke. If you enjoyed this video, you will probably like my entire channel, so make sure to subscribe and also follow me on my socials if you want to see the behind the scenes and day-to-day stuff, like me getting upset over Belly's choices in the summer I turned pretty. Let's continue. The second habit is buying things in order to feel better. You know, like you've had a long day, you've had a rough day, and you go to the mall and you just want to look, right? But then you always buy something. And this emotional spending is often disguised as self-care, and you might often think, well, I worked hard for this, I deserve this, and that is probably true. However, impulsive purchases are often not about the item, it is actually about the dopamine rush that you get when you're about to buy that thing. So the question is this actually an item that you definitely want and that you will definitely use, or is it just something that will take the edge off? Often the high of purchasing something or of clicking buy now online makes you more satisfied than actually owning the item. And of course, then you end up with a bunch of clutter around you and a bunch of clothes you don't even wear. And you might also be frustrated at yourself and feel buyer's remorse because you don't need the item. So that is why I just like to wait 24 hours. If I still like the thing after 24 hours, I still want it and I know I can afford it, I will buy it, because of course you should always treat yourself. I am not a big believer in being really harsh with your budget. I do think that we should treat ourselves. However, impulse purchases are never good, and I also like to think about it this way. Would I prefer to buy like 5 things impulsively that I will never use, or would I rather just keep the money and then buy like one thing that I actually genuinely like? The third habit is delaying financial decisions because of decision fatigue. This whole idea is rooted in behavioral economics, and I think just from looking around you can see that people like to choose the path of least resistance, and that path might include not making any decisions about your finances and just letting money come in, go out, never putting money aside, never opening an investment account, because it is just difficult to think about that. You might have to solve a few problems, like you might have to decide which broker to use for your investment account. And because it feels overwhelming and there are so many decisions you need to take, you just avoid doing it altogether. However, this is costly because obviously saving today rather than tomorrow will get you higher returns. So basically avoiding to do anything with your money keeps you from doing the things that would actually free you. And the longer you avoid it, the worse it gets. So right now, if you can, open up a savings account. This is a personal recommendation. I'm not getting paid to say this. I might have a link that might get you and me like some discount. I will check. I'll leave that down below if I can find it. I love Trade Republic. I've been using them for 5 years now. Personal recommendation, again, try them if you want. Fourth habit is not tracking where your money goes. And I know that it can feel very uncomfortable to track your money, especially if you see that you're overspending or that you don't have a lot of money or that you cannot purchase the things that you would like to purchase. However, if you don't track it, you cannot fix it. You know that a lot of people who are financially free, who are millionaires, still budget. Not because they cannot afford stuff, not because they want to be very strict with their budget, but just because they want to know where the money is going. They don't want to pay for subscriptions that they don't use or spend money needlessly on things they actually don't want. You can just use your Notes app or a Notion template if you want, or an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, but you need to know what is coming in, what is going out. Because, and again, studies have shown that people underestimate their spending. So if you know exactly how much you spend, you can make better financial decisions. Habit 5 is treating credit like free money. And this is insane, first of all. Let's talk about the 20% APR, and 20 is low. Some credit cards have like 25, 29%. That is insane. Basically, you borrow money and you have to pay 25% more on that back. That is insane. Again, the way that some people use credit cards is just like borrowing money without thinking about how they're gonna pay it back. And basically, they are just borrowing from their future selves. And I can guarantee you that the future self is pissed. Because it is not buy now, pay later. It is buy now, feel stressed later because you still cannot pay it back. Also, credit cards detach the pain of paying right now, so you actually end up spending more than you would with a debit card. So before you buy anything that you cannot afford on a credit card, think of yourself looking at those bills that you cannot pay and feeling very stressed. I feel like that would really relieve the need of buying something right now. Healthy use of credit cards is using it as a tool, not a trap, only buying things you can afford, using the cards in order to rack up miles, points, smiles, whatever there is out there, and actually paying back the credit in full by the end of the month. So you don't have to pay those 20% fees. Again, 20% is insane. Not taking any risks is also not good because inflation just basically eats away at your savings very silently. But you know, inflation is still usually 2 to 3% depending on the country. Sometimes you have hyperinflation, also not great. Huge problem. But under normal circumstances, if you don't want to lose money by just having it sit in a bank, you need to invest because even savings accounts barely cover inflation. You might still be losing money by having a savings account that pays you back like 0.5% when inflation is 2%. There's this thing called the equity premium puzzle, which is a really interesting concept. The part that is important for us in the context of this video is that people have an extremely high risk aversion when it comes to stocks. A lot of people don't invest into stocks because it is uncertain, they're afraid they're gonna lose all of their money, and yes, of course, you can lose all of your money if you make bad investments. However, when you look at the returns of the stock market over 10, 20 years, you will see that they are positive. Which means, yes, 1 year you might lose money. It is not a guarantee, but it is also not a guarantee that there are never gonna be bad times. If you invest smartly and you are diversified over different sectors and you don't buy in only once and then never again, you are most likely to make money. Investing is not gambling, and you can reduce risk by being informed, making smart decisions, and using time to your advantage. Don't let the fear of a short-term possible loss block you from having long-term wealth. Because a lot of people who are rich and wealthy, they have invested. They were smart with their money. They made their money work for them. I could talk forever about this topic. Like, I am willing to sit down and make a 1-hour video if that is what you want about investing, about the basics of it, how to get started, exactly what to invest in, also what I've invested in. Let me know if you want that, but until that video may or may not come out, remember that the biggest risk might just be playing it too safe. Seventh habit is waiting for motivation instead of building systems. The people who really have a grasp on their finances usually automate everything. They know that motivation is unreliable, but systems are sustainable. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So what you can do is to automate things like paying your bills, putting money aside into a savings account. For instance, if you know that your salary always gets paid on the first of the month, you could have a recurring transfer that is done by the end of the first or maybe on the second, where you put an amount of money aside into your savings account and you also pay all of your bills. That way you don't have to keep checking things, you won't forget to pay your bills, and you also won't forget to put money aside because it is all done for you. The next habit is surrounding yourself with people who normalize overspending. It is very normal for humans to mirror the behaviors of all of the people who are around them. Even without realizing it, you might copy the financial behaviors of the people in your circle. Because of course, if you hang out with them and the only thing you do is go shopping, of course you're gonna spend money. It's really hard not to. So if your friends normalize retail therapy, taking vacations they cannot afford on credit cards, again, 20% APR, are you insane? Sorry. And also, never talking about money or never getting financially smarter, then you will most likely do the same. So you should really audit your circle and look at the people you're with. Do they actually respect money and respect the hard work that sometimes goes into getting even a little bit of money? Or do they just burn through it as if it grows on trees? And you know, you don't have to cut people off, you just have to set some boundaries. Like, you can still go to the mall with them, but if you don't want to spend, then don't feel forced to just because they do. It's okay to save up. It is okay to be on a budget. Communicate that with them. And if they judge you for it, those are not your friend. The ninth habit is thinking that future you will be more disciplined. There's this term in economics called hyperbolic discounting. It is basically just a very fancy way of saying that people prefer smaller but immediate rewards over higher rewards in the future because they always value the present moment more than the future. That means that individuals are more likely to make impulsive decisions because they will get instant gratification out of it even if it hurts their future self. And this is scary because we often underestimate how hard things might be for the future us. For instance, you might postpone saving and investing because you assume that you will get more serious later, you'll have more money later. And it's why you might be overspending this month, thinking that next month you can just save, but then you also overspend next month. The problem is that future you most likely will have the same habits, but maybe more responsibility, more things to pay for, higher bills. So what you can do in order to fix that is to really automate your actions today. Open that savings account. Make the automatic transfer at the beginning of every month. Open an investment account. Do it because putting it off doesn't mean you're ever gonna do it in the future. It doesn't guarantee that. And the last habit is confusing risk with uncertainty. It is very normal for humans to fear things that they don't know. And oftentimes we fear things that we don't understand more than actual dangers. You know, like you might avoid investing, switching banks because another bank might give you a higher percentage, or negotiating your salary because it feels uncertain. Not because it's too risky or because you know you will get a bad deal, but because it just feels uncertain. There are a lot of studies in the field of economic psychology that show that people prefer certain rewards that are smaller over uncertain rewards that are actually bigger. Like they prefer getting a certain reward of $50 more than they prefer getting an uncertain reward that has an average of $100. Logically, you should prefer the uncertain reward. However, it is shown that people always prefer the certain reward. The problem is that this clearly leads to objectively bad choices. Don't let uncertainty hold you back, and the way you do this is by getting more knowledgeable. For instance, by watching videos like this one. Get more knowledgeable about the things that you are doing. You need to just learn the basics, get informed, and then act. Act in a smart way. Don't let these unrational human impulses hold you back from becoming financially free. Let me know if you want more videos on financial topics because I would love to do them. This is really important for everyone, and every single person deserves to be financially free and knowledgeable about finance. And also, go argue with the finance bro. Ask them why we cannot print more money. It is my favorite hobby. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!